everybody. It's Tessie Charles, and we have Daryl Hester with us for Love and Law, episode 22.
Hello.
So, Daryl is with us today. Charles, our last conversation, we were talking about the new presumption that's sweeping a lot of states with the 50-50 custody. And you were of the mindset that you think 50-50 custody is really good, and a lot of men are going to have newfound access to their children that they otherwise may not have gotten. And I do agree with that in some ways. There are a lot of old school judges who feel like the child should always be with the parent, especially younger children, or they think female children should be with the parents, with the mother rather. And you feel that some men will have access now that they deservingly should have. My position was, I think that 50-50 custody, not a 50-50 presumption, but a 50-50 custody or long blocks of time for the child with one parent versus the other parent creates a lot of emotional and developmental torment for the child or issues for the child. And so Daryl Hester is our camera guy. He does a lot of our social media. He's the person that puts together this whole podcast, is on the other side of the camera and was having quite the reaction while we were having this conversation. So we wanted to have him come from behind the camera, have a seat and join us as a child who lived through the shared time, the 50-50 custody, or the long blocks of time with one parent versus the other parent. So exactly what, first of all, thank you for joining us from behind the camera.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us from behind the camera to, share your perspective as an adult who had that shared time.
Right.
So how old were you when you started the shared parenting time?
Yeah, so my parents, I was around, I want to say 6 or 7. My parents got divorced in the early 2000s. We had moved down here from Michigan originally because my father is from Michigan. My mom's from Philadelphia. They met in Philly, moved to Michigan, got married and everything. My brother was already in the picture, so there was a blended family. My brother's 6 years older than me. So when we moved from Michigan, it was because my mom had some work and they found some employment down here in Georgia. So we've been here since 99. What happened was they had a whole bunch of issues. There was some abuse involved. And then they divorced. And so during that process, me and my brother would spend the weekends with my dad, and then we would spend the summer with him. So mathematically, I think, what's that, 90 days during the summer, right? About 3 months, roughly.
But I have a question. You spent every weekend with him and then also every summer? How did you do that from Georgia to Michigan? Yeah,
so we moved to Georgia, and they were all still married. They were all still in a relationship and everything.
Understood.
So my father, once they divorced, I was with him. Me and my brother were with him every weekend, and he lived in like Lawrenceville, and my mom lived in Alpharetta at the time. So they weren't super far apart. So yeah, it was every weekend with him, and then the summer with him as well. So we would do the school year with my mom, basically. Yeah. So I remember the last episode you were talking about this thing that happens where you kind of end up developing 2 personalities, right? That's basically what happened. So me and my brother, my mom, very strict, very Christian, very, no partying, no smoking, no drugs, you can't even watch this certain TV show, you can't listen to this song, all that stuff. So when we lived with her during the school year, it was very strict program, very. But when we lived with our dad, everything went. We got to do whatever we wanted. And we got to go to parties. We got to hang out with girls. We got to, my mom's sex conversation was never have it or you'll get herpes or something. My dad's sex conversation was throw on a condom, you'll be fine. I was 14 when he told me that. This is the kind of guy he was. He was a very free loving.
So, but why do you say that I was 14 when he said that? You thought you were too young to have that conversation?
According to my mother, I definitely was. See, that's the thing. And so my mom's perspective of how my dad was raising us on his side, she hated it. She was like, he was too open. He was entirely too everything is cool. These are your kids. You can't treat them like they're your friends. And then on my dad's side, he's like, yeah, your mom's too strict. I can't believe she don't let you guys listen to rap or hip hop. I can't believe this. And so that was the life we lived. Between the two parents, we would hear them complain about each other, right? Like, so we'd get to our dad, and he's like, well, I haven't seen you. I didn't get a chance to see you last weekend because your mom kept me from you. So I just want to let you know that wasn't my fault. It was her fault. And that was the life we lived. It was just a constant, that's what it was, the back and forth.
So on one side of that, it almost seems like that would be a good thing. Like, I can see, in my opinion, how that, you're saying like it was hard, but I think that's actually how the co-parenting should be. He gets to instill in you what he believes is important, and your mom gets to instill what she believes is important. Him thinking that his sons needed to know about how to protect themselves sexually at 14 is, a lot of people, I honestly had that conversation with my children way earlier than 14. Mm-hmm. And part of that because I was 15 and pregnant. So my perspective is very different than Charles' perspective and what he wants to impart to our children. But I guess what I'm more curious about was, how did living with your father on the weekend, was he involved with school at all?
He was involved to the degree, like, if we ever got in trouble, he would do his best to reinforce what we got in trouble for at my mom's house, but not for very long. He was like, if we got in trouble for grades, for example, he would be like, oh, okay, that's bad. Yeah, don't watch TV for like 2 hours. It's like, okay.
So did you ever like forget things at your mom's house that you wanted at your dad's house? And like, was that ever an issue of just having two different homes and kind of living out of a suitcase?
Yeah. Because when you were saying that in the last episode, living out of a suitcase, we were living out of a backpack, right? And so there would be like toys and stuff I would forget at one house. And I'd be like, Mom, can we go get it? And she's like, no, I don't want to go see that man. Oh. So it was like, all right. Hey, Dad, can you come? And he's like, no, it's not my time to see you. I was like, oh, God. Okay.
How did that affect your relationship with your friends?
Oh, it was pretty tough. So I mean, definitely who I am now, I was not as open as I am now as I was back then. Or in other words, I was a very like recluse kind of kid, because I just had a lot of issues growing up, like behaviorally and stuff, and a lot of that had to do with the divorce. And me having friends was tough in both scenarios. Living with my mom, she never wanted us to really be around friends because she was very sheltered. Like, I don't want you getting tainted by them. I don't want you doing drugs with them. So no, you can't go to that party. You can't go to the homecoming. You can't go over their house. No. When I go over to my dad's house, we had a lot more freedom because he was at work most of the time. A lot of the time he was at work. So we were just kind of fending for ourselves. But during that time, the friends that we had, they were so short term because we didn't get to really see them during the rest of the year. So there are times we go back to my dad's house and they're gone. They moved away during the year. So when we got back, it's a whole new set of kids. It's a whole new set of characters.
Did your dad ever leave Lawrenceville and you guys had to continue that kind of parenting plan from out of state? Or did he stay in Lawrenceville until you guys like graduated high school?
So he stayed. So during it gets kind of weird. So between the ages of like 7 and I want to say 14, my dad was all over the place because he was sort of a criminal. He was.
This is going so.
Yeah, well, this is
yeah.
Mm-hmm. My dad was wanted by the law, and so he had to keep moving. Mm-hmm. And in that, we had to keep showing up in different houses. So these neighborhoods that we would have had friends in didn't have friends anymore because he was somewhere else. My mom also moved a lot too. So throughout 7 years of our life, me and my brother moved, if you count both my mom and dad, we moved a grand total of 22 times.
In 7 years?
Yes, because both of them kept moving. They kept moving. My mom would move for more financial reasons because she was a single mom. So whenever she wasn't able to afford that house, she had to move to another house. My dad was moving because he was a criminal. So he had to keep moving because they kept finding him. One day, in fact, while we were at his house, he got arrested because they finally caught up with him. After he got out, he immediately moved houses. That's how it was. So between her house and his house, we couldn't really make a lot of friends, no matter what. And my brother really got affected by that, especially because he was in high school at the time. And he couldn't catch a break. He was in like 3 high schools.
So how would not doing 50-50 custody. How do you believe that that would have helped that? Because it doesn't seem like that's a 50-50 custody issue. It doesn't seem like it's more of a 50-50 thing. Like, do you think that it would have been better or smoother if you were just with your mom as
Yes.
opposed to split? But how so if you say she moved a lot too?
Well, because it was, a lot of it was the strife between those two kept bleeding into every time we go to each other's house. It wasn't like, so for example, I think a lot of people have this perspective that 50-50 custody is clean. It's like, okay, you're here for half the time and you're over there for half the time. And you kind of just live in these separate worlds and they don't bleed into each other and you're good to go. And in my perspective, me and my brother's perspective, that wasn't true at all. Like, my mom would be calling my dad, policing him, right? And now I'm hearing her yelling at him on the phone because she found out that we done went somewhere that she didn't want us going. Why'd you let him do that? What's wrong with you? So now he's frustrated. So the time we would have had with him, he's mad all the time. So now that whole weekend is ruined because my mom called him, pissed him off. Now he don't want to hang out with us. He's mad. And then we go over her house. While we're over back at my mom's house, my dad's supposed to pay child support. He ain't paying it. So she's struggling financially. And she's like, I'm needing to get money from your father. And all these things are happening. And we're like, okay, what do you want us to do about that? We're kids. We can't do nothing about that. So she would use us and kind of be like, all right, go ask your dad for some money. Like, so when it's time to go over his house, when it was time to have that time with him, we were like secret spies. We're like, hey, Dad, so it has come to our attention that mom needs some money. And so now she's using us as like agents to like get money from. It was, I think, and this is the discussion me and my brother had, the way it was set up between those two it just wasn't healthy. And what we ended up having to learn was how to hide parts of ourselves from both of them. And that's the thing that people don't like understand. When I went back to my mom, I had to hide the parts of myself that I love being around my dad. Because when she saw that, she knew it came from him. She would almost punish us for having those parts of ourselves around her. Because she knew it was him that did it. It was almost like a crime, or she'll say something like, oh, I know you got that from your dad. Like, yes. I mean, I'm with him half the time. What am I supposed to do? Like,
So question, if you had to choose two questions, which parent would you have chose to live with? And then let's say that they were both stable. Would that have changed your answer?
So the answer to the first question is, I'll spell it out. So my mom, she was more emotionally present in a weird way, but she was also very critical all the time of everything. She was a very critical person, but she had more structure in her household. Obviously, when when a lot of people grow up Christian, there's a lot more structure. But it was also based in fear a lot of time too. Like if we didn't do something right, then God is going to punish us and we're going to hell. Like it was, yeah. My dad, on the other hand, he lacked structure, right? For example, when we would get in trouble for something, me and my brother, we didn't know what we were getting in trouble for because he never really set the ground rules for anything. So we're in his house and we're just like, oh, I'm a hungry dude. I eat all the time. You know that. I'm in your house eating, right? And I would just go in the refrigerator and get something out of there and eat it. My dad would come home and yell at us. I mean, he was like angry. And we're like, what? I didn't know I couldn't eat that. I'm sorry. Like, I'm going to apologize to this man half the day now. And he's mad at me for the rest of the time I'm there because I ate a bagel that he was saving for lunch. Like, that whiplash was tough to deal with him. So if I had to choose, I would say my mom, only because the structure was a little bit more present there. And I knew what I could and couldn't do. With him, I didn't know what I could and couldn't do. And it was more of a mystery. Also, he had anger problems. So he was bipolar. And he took medication for it. But sometimes he didn't. And he would just be on a rampage sometimes. Now, he never hit me. But my brothers did get the brunt of that. So that was the thing for us. So it was complicated. But the second part of your question is, if they were more stable, would that make a difference? Yeah, it would have. If they were more stable, they would have never got divorced. So, in my opinion, that's how I see it.
But if they were stable and they got a divorce, and your dad wasn't a criminal who sometimes did and sometimes did not take his bipolar medication, and your mom was just financially secure, and so they were both capable parents, and we're starting from 50-50 presumption. I guess I'm asking you a question that will be impossible for you to know because that's not what it was. But if it was not a financial issue and mom was in the same house and dad was in the same house, do you think that would have made a difference on your experience going back and forth between the two homes?
Yeah, if we're presuming that they were both structured, stable people, it would have made a huge difference in the 50-50. Right? That's what you're asking? Yeah, because me and my brother would not have had to feel this like... Because in a regular 50-50, the presumption would be you get to be your whole self over here and your whole self over here as a kid. This is the part that people don't get. That a lot of times you have to be a different person at this house. And then when you go back to your mom or dad's house, you have to be a different person. You're not your whole self. You're a fragmented part of your... And so that's the... So I would... Yeah, if they were both stable, I would have been able to be my full self at both houses.
And see, I don't know that you would be.
Okay. Let's get into it.
My opinion, because what you're saying is exactly the same thing that I'm saying, but I don't think it's a thing that finances would change. If you and I were married and Charles was our child, you're one way over here. Dad is the one that's the fun person, and hey, here's a box of condoms at 14 years old. It has nothing to do with financial stability. And mom over here is, I'm in church. Every time the door open, I'm unlocking the door. I'm dusting the pews. If your dad is saying, sex is cool, just wear a condom, hey, go for it. And mom is saying, no, Jesus is going to punish you. You're going to hell. I don't think that has as much to do with finances. We're both stable. We just have very different ideas on how we should raise our 14-year-old son. How would finances have made that situation different?
Oh, I see what you're saying. So that in particular, it wouldn't have made that super different. I think that is just how my parents were, just in general. I think the financial arm comes to a different place, right? So I think, for example, every parent has ups and downs in their career and finances. Like sometimes you have great years or months, and sometimes you don't. Here's a great example, right? My dad was a bit of a gambling addict, to our knowledge. We came home one day to his house, and he sold everything because he couldn't afford the bill, right? And so, because me and my brother kept having to be on edge about like, all right, is he going to sell okay, we go shopping one day because he's up financially, right? He's making good money. He says, all right, let's go shopping. All right. He'll furnish our whole room. It looks great. We have these toys. We have this new stuff. Okay, we come back. He sold it. The 50-50, the more time you spend with somebody, the more impactful it is. If it was 75-25, or if it was 90-10, or if it was 95-5, I don't think there's a possibility. And again, it's hard to know because that wasn't what happened. But if I would have been in a place less time and had less connection to it, it wouldn't have felt as impactful. For example, if there are kids that only spend the weekend with their dad, that they'll go over there for the summertime, and maybe they only spend the weekend like, because you guys know how it is. They'll start off with something, but then like it'll taper off. Like sometimes the parents don't keep up with the schedule or whatever. Even if it was, I think Charles had mentioned last episode, like if it was once a month, like you saw your kid once a month or twice a month or something like that, I think it would have been less impactful because we would have seen him less, or we would have been exposed to that less. The 50-50 part, it becomes difficult because what's really happening is I think is the best way I can explain it is the fragmentation of self. You have to keep fragmenting yourself and placing yourself in a position, whether it's financial, whether it's spiritual or mental or emotional, what you experience in one house and having to switch houses, you keep having to experience something different. If it was one household, when my mom and dad lived together, we didn't experience any of that stuff. They were different people because they were different people together, right? When separated, it was almost as if they became different people because they're like, oh, you know what? I guess I don't have to clean up as much. You know, when I was around your mom, I cleaned all the time. I didn't got to do that. Like, or my mom was like, you know, when your dad was around, I didn't go to church as much, but now that he's gone, I could live there. Like, so they became different people when they separated. And so now me and my brother are experiencing two completely different types of parents when they're separated. And I think that's something too that people might not understand.
And see, my experience with the two different households was different. For the most part, I don't feel like I had to change. They fundamentally were the same person. My mom was the one that took more of the change. The rules were strict at both houses. The things that I got in trouble for at both houses. It's just I did have a little bit more leeway at my dad's house than my mom. He gave me the rope to hang myself, and my mom gave me none.
Yeah.
But you don't do the dishes, you was getting punished at both houses.
Right.
On Sunday, you woke up and you went to church at both houses.
Right.
Now, at my dad's house, if I didn't feel well, he said, you don't have to go today. At my mom's house, you going. You're just going to bleed out in church, and hopefully Jesus will save you.
Yeah.
So, from my standpoint, now she did change some because of the divorce, and I understand that. But I don't feel like I had to change the person that I had to change between the houses. Nor, I don't think it was in my personality to do so. It was one way, and that was it.
Yeah.
But my parents also grew up in the same town in New York. They grew up almost on the same street, the equivalent of maybe a 1 mile walk from one house to the other. So the two families grew up together. So it was I guess it was more of a similar thing.
Yeah.
But
see, that's the difference, right? I think ideologically, people, when they think of 50-50, they're like, okay, well, they're going to experience the same household from this house A to that house B.
Well, for me, it wasn't feasible because I had a parent in New York,
right,
in Indiana.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then my dad moved from New York to North Carolina in Indiana. But all of us ended up back in New York for the summer. So whether my mom was in Indiana or my dad was in North Carolina, everybody always ended up back in New York for the summer. Why, I don't know.
Yeah.
Now, similar to you, he wasn't in trouble with the law, but involved in the street some. He was a little bit more liberal in that, and my mom was not for all of that. So the way they raised me and the things that they would have exposed me to ultimately would have been a problem.
Yeah. So,
I mean, I can see some problem in that, but the 50-50, I'd have been all for it. I would have jumped on 50-50 because I felt like I'm over here all the time and I don't even want to be over here with you.
Right. Oh, well, that's
What do you mean?
When you say, what do you mean?
You said 50-50, you would have been all over it. Because you're over here all the time, you don't want to be here. What I'm saying is, people listening don't know what that means. You're saying that, and I know what you mean because I know you. That's a confusing statement for people who don't know your backstory. What you're saying is you would have preferred to be at your dad's house rather than your mom's house, so you would have preferred 50-50 so that you can have more time with your dad because you didn't necessarily like being at your mom's house all the time. That's what, I know what you meant, but yeah.
Yeah, and that's depending on the season would depend on where me and my brother would want to be. That's what made it even more difficult because sometimes our mom was really frustrating us. We were like, oh my God, let's go with dad. Like, I mean, I'd rather be with dad. So we finally go to dad's house. And for some reason that week or that weekend, wherever, he's mad. He ain't talking to us. He don't want to be bothered. He's in his room the whole time.
Do you think the way that you were raised, split between the two houses, affected you as a parent now?
That's a good question. So my daughter's 4 years old. And me and my wife, I would probably say Yes, because I try to be balanced. I don't want to be the parent that's like one particular type of way. I don't want to necessarily make my kid feel like dad is only the fun dad. I don't know, you guys heard of that probably before, like the fun parent, right? But I also try to be the disciplinarian at the same time. Like I'm both. I try to be the fun disciplinarian parent, and I try to take what my mom gave us and what my dad was trying to give us and put it into one package of like, I'm gonna be both. I'm not gonna give you this side of things.
Of co-parenting.
Yeah,
That truly is the goal of co-parenting. Now, it sounds like your parents had some issues, but it sounds like for the most part they got a lot of it right. As far as you have an experience at your mom's house and you have a different experience at your father's house, and you felt some relief at different houses at different times, and there are great things that you learn from your father and experiences you have with him, and the same is true of your mom. And them having shared custody, you had two different experiences and gained valuable things from both of them separately. I don't think that most judges or courts or parents expect that the child is going to have the same experience at both houses. I don't think that that's what people would think. Maybe they do. I never thought about that they think that the child's going to have. I think they expect it to be different than a lot of people, just based on talking to our clients. I think they want and intend for it to be different.
I think so, but I think the other.
Your mom, I know your mom would have been intentional about making sure your experience at her house was different than your experience at your father's house, for sure.
See, that's the thing. My mom did not want the experience to be different. She wanted to be basically carbon copy, and that was one of the biggest issues that we had was like, you know, when we're at my mom's house, you know, she was eating like she was on a health kick at the time, tofu and, you know, like vegetarian stuff.
She wanted it to be different her way.
Yes. See that's what I'm saying. There's this idealized version that people are like, oh yeah, if it's 50-50, then and my kid experiences something different over there, it's all good. No, let me tell you something. If you are vegan and your kid eats vegan with you, and the dad is not vegan, and the kid goes over there and is eating meat, you will be pissed. You're not going to be cool with that. Like, that's what I mean. And I think that's the reality that I want. Like, a lot of people don't get. Like, if you live a certain lifestyle at your house, and that's the lifestyle you want your kid to live all the time, 50-50 is going to be real hard for you if you do it and they go to dad's house or mom's house, and that's not the way they live. And that was my experience. Because once my mom was like, huh? Hello? Yeah. Well, what do you mean Daryl ate circus peanuts until he threw up? Why would you let him do that? Or you let him just eat candy whenever he wants? Why? What do you, like, that's the, so who's right or wrong is a difficult kind of like conversation to parse out. But it's like you are just living a different life than what you were living at your parents, at your original parents' house.
But I wouldn't expect the houses to be the same. You're two different people. Like that's it's the difference of a man and a woman, or even if it's two men, two women, they're two different people.
You make a great point.
With two different ideas of parenting, on lifestyles, upbringing, and all of those things. Yeah. And when you come together and you try to blend that together, raising a child, that's one issue in itself. And now that you're separated, I don't necessarily have to consider you. I'll back you up if we come up with a plan. But your idea of being a vegetarian, when you come to my house, you're going to have some bacon.
You sound like my dad.
And when you come to my house, I don't, because I had those situations. Yeah. I couldn't watch The Simpsons. My mom, we weren't allowed.
Yeah. Okay,
when I went to my dad's house, I had the whole short set. Yeah. Like I had it, I could watch it, and that was something different. But
I don't think those things apply to 50-50. I think it's the same thing even if it's just a weekend.
Agreed. So I'm just saying the parenting styles are going to be somewhat different, but I don't think that's necessarily a problem, because when you get out into the real world, you're going to have bosses that this one is a micromanager and this one lets you hang yourself.
Well, I'm going to hit you with this though. It does apply to 50-50 to the extent of exposure, right? Because the longer you're exposed to somebody, the hard. Okay, you said it earlier in the last episode. You said when my kids. Or no, I think you said about you or somebody else. But when your kids come back, there's a readjustment period. Okay, when I'm at my dad's house, we got to stay up till 5 a.m.
No,
When I go back to my mom's house, we're in bed by 8. What does that do to my psyche? What does that do to my sleep schedule? Okay, when I'm at my mom's house, we eat this way. When I go to my dad's house, we eat Mexican food, Chinese food. What does that do once I go back? So the exposure, the time of exposure, right, is what the 50-50 messes you up at. So if I'm only visiting my dad one day a week, two times a month, it's whatever. My mom wouldn't really care as much. But if I'm seeing this man for the whole summer, that's 3 months. I'm coming back home like, go to bed at 8. You tripping? I'm not going to bed at 8. She's like, what? Like that was the big ripping point. Was my mom was very much a stickler for schedule. You got to be in bed by this time. You got to eat this. My dad wasn't. So going between these two mindsets, these two, it like tore our psyche in half. Because we're like, and again, when we go back to my mom's house, we are judged, literally punished for having these habits from my dad. So now there's something at stake here. I could get whooped if I'm bringing something from my dad's house, or if, you know what I'm saying? Like that's what I'm talking about. Like, so that was the biggest issue for us. And when we go to my dad's house and like, you know, we'll do something like, I don't know, like we'll clean, this sounds crazy. We would get up in the morning and we would clean up like everything. Like, cause that's how we were raised at my mom's house. My dad was like, what y'all clean up for? We're like, well, that's what we do every day at home. He's like, I gotta clean that. Okay. So this is like, so you're getting ripped in half. You're like, okay. So there's a certain point where your brain cannot, like, it can't keep doing that. It can't keep doing that for years and years. And you're like, so for me, I did sort of split in half. I was like this in front of my mom. Then as soon as I got in the car, I transformed into the son from my dad. When I got back home with my mom, I transformed into the son from my mom. She didn't like the son I was from my dad. She didn't appreciate the son I was from my dad. She didn't like that. I needed to be the son for her. So when I got back home, she was proud of me. She wanted me to be there. She didn't like the part of me that was at my dad's house. I needed to leave that part there. That's what I'm talking about.
But was it because she didn't like? So it was because she didn't like your dad? It was taking that out on you because you were mine, not because you did something bad.
Oh, I'm his junior. So, I mean, yeah,
I'm just
probably.
saying, if you,
That'll help.
Let's just say that you would have loved to play a sport or you loved basketball. And let's say you ended up being good at it. Would your mom have been mad and not wanted you to play basketball because it reminded you of your dad?
That is such a great conversation. My mom did not like the idea of me being in sports.
But
I'm glad you brought that up.
was only because of it reminded her of your dad, not
necessarily. Well, okay, I hear what you're saying. She was never really like that. I don't know, because you don't really know the mind or heart of the parent. She never said that to me. Like she doesn't like, oh, that reminds me of your dad. I never heard that. But you bring up sports. I have asthma, right? So my dad wanted me to be in sports, football, basketball, that kind of thing, And my mom was like, no sports. Asthma. I don't want you, health. Mm-hmm. Fear. It was mostly fear, right? Me and my brother were raised in fear at my mom's house. My dad, he raised us, I don't want to say liberation. It was laziness. He just didn't care. So like that was the two extremes. Fear or apathy. That was all we got. And that was a wild rubber band. So when it comes to sports, it was, hey, I don't want you going out there because I don't want you having an asthma attack. All right? My dad was pushing it like, you got to let him do sports. Like, let him do sports. No, I won't let him. No. So when I go to my dad's house, I'm throwing the football around. I'm running around the yard, right? And I'm loving it. And now imagine I got to go back home and I'm like, all right, how do I tell my mom I really want to do sports? So I say, all right. So my dad's like, hey, listen, go back home. Just sit down with your mom and just be honest. I said, Dad, that's a great point. I'm just going to sit down and be honest with her. That was the worst mistake I could have made. She was so mad at me. Because she was like, oh, you must have got that idea from your dad, huh? Oh, I bet you do want to play sports. Well, he's not here taking you to the hospital if you get sick. He's not the one that... I literally got a 2-hour talking to, tongue lashing, for even bringing an idea from my dad's house to her house. An idea.
So
what?
She had a lot of resentment.
I would imagine so. I mean, where the resentment came from.
Do you feel like it was taken out on you, though?
To that degree, yes. To that degree, yes. But when it goes deeper to like, did I remind her of him? I don't know about that part because I feel like that's a little bit like a different level. But yeah, if I brought an idea from his house to her house that she didn't like, that reminded her of him. Like, oh, you just gonna come in here and think you're not the mom, right? Where's he at? Well, you gonna listen to the guy? You barely around him like that. So me and my brother were literally punished for having ideas. Ideas, Charles. We didn't even do anything. It was just an idea that we got from this man. And she mad. You know what I'm talking about? When we go to his house, similar. And so it's like the 50-50 messed us up from that regard. All right. And it just was a lot. It was a lot to deal with. Emotionally, I still deal with it as an adult. Like, I was talking with somebody before. I think it was my therapist. And we had that conversation. She was like, as she was talking to me, she kept saying something similar to like, you keep talking like you're trying to please me instead of just being honest. Why are you doing that? And I was like, because I always had to do that.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting you said that. You and I have had that conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you would say stuff to me and I'm like, Daryl, that makes no sense.
Mm-hmm.
And don't just tell me what you think I want to hear. If you don't know, tell me and we can figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Because you know what that is.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's bullshit.
Bullshit, right.
Bullshit. And so we had that, not bullshit the way everybody else listening is thinking about it, but how I see it.
Yeah.
And that's interesting. But you think that people pleasing came from having to please, from shifting back and forth from house to house?
According to my professional therapist. That is exactly where it came from. And so that was the biggest issue. Now, I can't speak for my brother. He had his own separate issues. But for me, people pleasing, my salesmanship, the way I'm able to morph who I am from one person to another, one place to another, I do it all the time, even now as an adult. And I noticed that, like, and it's crazy. Like, I really do have like these separate parts of myself that I engage when I need to. There are people, I can go to any room at any time, and it doesn't matter who you are. I can talk to you like I know you yesterday, and I can tell you exactly what you want to hear. And all types of opportunities that I've gotten came from this part of myself. Now, it's not healthy, but I've made a lot of money doing it. But interpersonally, it has messed me up, like in my own marriage. And so, like, I've had to unlearn those things. But the 50-50 and living those two lifestyles day in and day out, month in, month out, for years and years until my dad left. He ultimately left when I was 16. And then, he left when I was 16. I didn't see him again until I was 25. Yeah, I didn't see him again until I was 25. Missed my graduation, wedding, everything. Didn't see him again until I was 25. And so, yeah, so now watch this. So now the 50-50 is over because he's gone, right? How am I to now live with these parts of myself that I learned from him and that I want to engage with? I can't do that in front of my mom. What do? I got to sneak. Now I did everything outside out. I snuck around. I was out the house. I acted like, hey, Daryl, I had to literally become a different person outside my mom. And so that is what ended up happening for me. I can't speak for every kid that will go through 50-50, but I think it is impossible and unrealistic to believe. Idealistically, you will, but it's unrealistic to believe that your kid won't be affected like that or in some fashion when you are two separate people who have two separate lives, who think separately, right? You talked earlier, last episode, about girlfriends and boyfriends. Remember that? Okay. Imagine how fun that is.
But I'm just saying, how many of those things would have been the natural progression of just becoming adolescence to adulthood? You still were going to have this point in life when you started to smell yourself. Mm-hmm. You still would have had this point in time when you would have wanted to date. I understand your mom would have instilled some of those values, and let's say that your dad wasn't. Some of these things, nature versus nurture, you still would have had some of those situations. So is it fair to say that it was all on him exposing you to it, and some of them would have just been things that would have came naturally? Whether you had the both households, two different personalities that were raising you.
That's a great question. I think it was more so it was the consequence of the exposure, not the exposure itself, right? So, for example, would I have eventually come to those conclusions myself? It depends on how you see that. If my mom was super structured and super sheltered and like kept me from everything, right? If I didn't have that exposure with my dad, I don't know. I couldn't tell you that I would have eventually done it. I think I still would have been in that bubble, right? Until I did something like go to college, went off to college. So because of my own personal experience, I can't say whether or not that would have been different. I don't know, because that's not the experience I lived. I don't know. What I can tell you is that the exposure from both sets of parents that I ended up going through, a lot of those experiences I did not have outside of the context of my father. He's the one that introduced me to it. Period. Like that, it was him. He's like, you know what I'm saying? And so, unlike most teenagers or kids, my dad is the one that, because he was like, well, you ain't never gonna learn if you with your mom, so I gotta teach you. So I gotta show you. It's up to me to show you, because you're not gonna figure it out with your mom. So from that context, I'd say that was the consequence of it. It was that I had to learn that stuff from my dad. Or rather, he put it upon himself to teach me. And when I went back home, that behavior was, well, let's put it this way. It wasn't welcome.
It was frowned upon.
It was frowned upon heavily. And so I say 50-50 is great if you both are able to establish some sort of structure that if me and my wife were to get divorced, for example, we would have a set structure for our kid. What are they allowed to listen to? What are they allowed to do? Where are they allowed to go? Ideologically, it sounds great. And I think that's where all of us want to be. But realistically, it probably will not happen. And I and your kid may potentially, the consequence may be whatever the heck happened to me. Because it's hard. You simply, as a human being, cannot ensure that each person is going to live the same life outside of the context of marriage.
But you still have to think about the other part too. Of we can come up with this idea, me and Tessie, of okay, now we're not together and we're co-parenting, but you don't know what the new parent or the new spouse may bring into play. Mm-hmm. So then that changes the dynamic all in itself. Mm-hmm. So I don't think that's some of these things. I just assume that maybe naively it's going to be different. In I guess fundamentally, as long as we can be in a place that we can talk about it, that if you get punished over here, I'm going to follow through with the punishment. That, hey, your grades are bad, no phone. That's what it's going to be, no phone. But as far as the sports you play, the things you watch, when he's at your house, he can do that. When he's at my house, this is what it's going to be. And that's just the understanding that we going to have. You now, if it's something that you say, this is what he's doing, or this is kind of the routine, I will follow that. But as far as the rest of it, I'm an individual.
But I think that's what I'm saying, right? You're right. As an individual, you would run your house differently. But this is why I think most people don't. I think the fear of the divorce and the separation is the effect that it has on the two people that were married, right? Like, that's the effect. It's like y'all have to live these separate lives, which sucks. Like, no one wants to have to do that. And when you do get into that scenario, as you both are aware of, like when you separate from this person, you got to kind of relearn yourself, right? I think my parents did a process of relearning themselves. And in that process, me and my brother had to relearn them as well. But then him and I both had to relearn who we were with these two people who are now separate from each other. Our household as a unit was not ran like that. It wasn't ran with this rubber band concept. Like, if it was this, it was this. If it was that, it was that. And both parents ran the same ship. And so it was never a question. But when they were separated and when the households diverged, it wasn't like that anymore. So, but that does cause an issue for the kid. Your brain, I don't know what it is, right? But your brain does something where it's like, this is a lot. I can't keep doing this. So she said it before. Last episode, eventually your kid gonna be like, I'm not gonna keep doing this. Eventually, because whether or not they subconsciously or consciously realize they're splitting themselves, or whether it's their stuff, their friends, their school, it's just too much. It really is. Like, it's a lot. And so I think for the parents, it sucks to hear that. Like, okay, well, I tried my best. You did. I think my mom and dad really did try their best. And if I had them right here sitting in front of us, they would say, we tried our best. And I'm not here to say your best wasn't good enough. What I am here to say is your best had a result, and this is it. So when I sit with my therapist, I got to talk about the result of your best. I got to cry over the result of your best. That was your best, but this is the result of it. Like, when that happens, it is horrible. It's hard. Parents have to deal with that. And I have a responsibility as an adult to work through it myself. I cannot blame my parents to the degree of like, oh, I can act however I want now. No, I'm responsible for repairing those parts that that might have been damaged or that I have to work through. They did their best. They did what they could.
How did they decide to do that parenting plan? Did your dad say, I want a lot more time with them? Why wasn't the then traditional parenting plan of like every other weekend? Like, was your dad like really involved when you guys got a divorce, when they got a divorce, and he said, I want my sons a lot more?
Yeah, because my dad had a previous son from his previous relationship. He definitely wanted this opportunity because I'm his son, right? And he's like, that's my junior. Nah, you gonna give me my kid. Like, I want my kid. So that was like a non-negotiable. He definitely wanted us to be around. And so, yeah, he fought for that, for sure. But even in fighting for that, you said something so funny before. You were like, in the household, were you even a 50-50 parent when you were in the house? Mm-hmm. Well, in retrospect, when my dad was in the house with us, he dealt with bipolar. He dealt with a lot of stuff emotionally and mentally. So there were times where we didn't see him for days. And so it's like,
this is the thing that I'm talking about. A lot of people, we live in the same house, and I am aware that we share the same address. Mm-hmm. And I'm aware that you have a bedroom in this house, as do I. But that is a lot of the parenting. I was there the whole time. I was there. We got a divorce when the kid is 12, and I'm there. But you never went to a parent-teacher conference. Mm-hmm. You're not the one that's helping them learn how to make pancakes. You're not spending that time parenting them in the house. But now that I have lived in the same house as you for 12 years, when we get a divorce, you're going to go over there with this guy who, in a lot of ways, in some cases, not all, of course not all, is a stranger. Or you have, like, there was a client that we had that we represented the father, and he was Mr. Dad. He was Mr. Dad. And I believe he was retired, like a medical injury or like an early retirement, and they had a child late. He was the one that took him to school every day, and he got up like that was the joy of his life was his son, and he was the Boy Scout. He was the Boy Scout leader. All of this, and the wife was this high-powered, employee. She had this profession that she was working 50, 60 hours a week, and Dad was everything. Take to school, pick up from school, homework, all the things. When they got a divorce, he fought for that time with that child. And 50-50 was earned in that situation. The child wasn't like stressed, like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I don't know this person. It was more the other way. The child had to learn to be raised with the mother. Yeah. Because the father was the one that did all the things coming and going for the whole life. And so when they split, when he was with his dad, this was normal. This is what we do. Dad, get up, take me to school, do the homework, do all the, extracurricular kind of things. And now mom is getting up in the morning trying to hand me some Cheerios. Like, you didn't even know I don't like Cheerios? Like,
exactly, yeah.
Do you not know I'm lactose intolerant? Right. I don't have milk? Like, she was, not to say that she didn't love their son, but her role in that relationship was the financial provider.
Exactly.
And most mornings, she was gone before the kid got up. And a lot of days, the child was in bed before she got home. Yeah. So in that scenario, and that's what I'm saying, in that scenario, you're talking about, let's do now 50-50. I think that's unfair to that child. That child has the whole life. I think that, of course, your mother should be involved. Yeah. They say, go stay with her for 50. And in that situation, I want to say that she literally had to get a nanny, not to help her. So instead of being with Dad the whole time, now there's a stranger who's not going to get me up and go to school because mom's entitled to 50-50. It's our child. It's our child. I want my time with the child and, all of this. But why not, mom, you come and visit, have a different parenting plan so the child's life is not interrupted because we were not co-parenting 50-50 parenting. Not financially providing. We were not co-parenting 50-50 for this child's life. And I think they got a divorce when he was like 10 or 11.
Where was the starting point of that? Was the starting point mom was going to be the primary and dad was going to be the secondary? Or was it dad was going to be the primary and mom was going to be the secondary? I understand you said the 50-50 was earned. Who were they leaning toward from day one?
Who is they?
The courts.
It wasn't who they were leaning towards. They lived in the house together during the whole divorce. And that's when I was still like in the courtroom myself. And it was very clear to me that we were going to fight for 50-50 of primary custody. He was okay with 50-50. He was okay with 50-50, but he wasn't going to accept anything less. And so we fought for 50-50, and he got it. So I don't understand is that your question?
Yes, some of it is my question, but if he was the primary, why was he even fighting for 50-50? When if you're saying it was presumed, the courts usually presume that the starting point is 50-50. If I'm the primary, and this is a different scenario where the dad is the primary, it still sounds like he wasn't going to get the 50-50. They were going to give mom.
Well, probably because she was the financial provider more than likely.
Neither.
Right?
It wasn't they, because mom wanted it. And this is a thing that we go back and forth, whether it was at the court. Way before we get to the court, let's start and let's have an agreement and let's go to mediation. So when we got to a final hearing, this was going to be our path. This was our strategy all along. But when you say the courts decide when the parents cannot. And so going into it, mother wanted primary custody because I'm the mother. And, women, this is my child. And it's a stroke against your ego. And it's a bad look for you not to have custody of your only child. It was both of their only child. They didn't do it temporary. They lived in the same house up until the divorce. So there was no temporary needed. But what I'm saying is the mother's ego would not allow the father, who had been the primary, to be the primary. And so she was fighting for primary and he was fighting for 50-50. And so we went through the whole process fighting until, exchanging discovery and going to mediation. He's asking for 50 and she's saying, no, you're going to get weekends. And so until we came to the final hearing. When we came to the final hearing and we presented our case to the judge, he agreed with our client, the dad. Yes, 50-50. At a minimum, yes, you're going to get 50-50.
While they were going through the process, what was it? What was
they still lived in the house, and the mother continued her same schedule, and the dad was still in the house doing the same thing he did since the child was born.
So during the divorce, they were able to live in the same house and co-parent.
She was gone that much that it didn't make that much of a difference. He moved into a different bedroom, and dad still got up and took him to school. Mom still continued her very high-powered career doing what she did, and it was largely uneventful that they were going through it. They were different ships. What's that expression? Different ships sailing past each other in the night, which is why they were getting the divorce, because he was father of the year, in love with raising his child, and she was off becoming this C-level, C-suite level professional and creating a great career for herself, which required early mornings and sometime, travel out of town for the weekend and sometime cocktails after hours and meetings and stuff. So she was being an executive, and as well as I know, that's not a 9-to-5 gig. Mm-hmm. And so she was out earning a career, and he was home raising their child.
But see, here's the thing too, and I want to make sure I say this. Like, I understand too that divorces happen for many reasons, whether it's abuse, whether it's just irreconcilable differences emotionally or even financially sometimes, But I never wanted to sound like doing a 50-50 is wrong in any way, or deciding to do it. Both parents allowed, like, for example, in my scenario, my mom, if you ask her, she would say, I gave my sons a chance to be, I gave that man a chance to be in my son's life, right? I fought for him to be able to spend time with his sons, because remember, it was abuse. Like, he attacked her. So there's a police report on it. So she could have easily been like, no, right? But they reconciled, they got, whatever. So she effectively was like, I'm cool with you having time with your sons, right? With your kids. I am glad to this degree that my parents tried their best to keep I I say good enough relationship with each other to be able to have us come back and forth, right? Because I think a lot of people watch this and be like, oh, so you didn't want to see your dad at all? Or you would have rather just been with one parent? That's not necessarily what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there's a reality behind all this. There's a reality behind 50-50.
But see, now I understand what you're saying, but just the lawyer in me have to address that comment when you say, I gave that man, that strikes a chord.
That's what she said. Yeah.
The opportunity to be, it wasn't hers to give. And though she feels like she's, being this really noble person to give your dad the opportunity to be in your life, that wasn't hers to give. And even though your dad could have been a hell of a man, a horrible husband, it would not have affected his ability to have a relationship with you, even if she didn't want it.
Yeah.
Police report or not. He could have got arrested for beating her up. It has nothing to do with the father that he is. So the fact that he and her got into a physical altercation and there's a police report, whether he went to jail or not, you're not going to see that because they're not together. So when we get a divorce, he's still your father, even though he's not her husband.
Right.
And so he still would have access to you, even though he got in a physical altercation with your mom, got arrested or not, TPO or not, has nothing to do with him as a father. It's what he do in front of you.
Right.
And he's not with your mother, so he's not going to be beating her up and having this impact. Them getting a divorce because of the domestic abuse between them, if that was the reason, it makes him a better parent and her a better parent, that they're not fighting each other in front of you. We are separate parents. Yeah. He has his own space. This rage about getting his bagel out the refrigerator, so it sounds like he has some issues with handling all that energy, and that's something else to work through. But I just wanted it to be said that she didn't give him the permission to be in your life.
Yes.
He would have got that anyway.
And a lot of people feel like that. There's a lot of people, whether it's a man or women, whatever, moms or dads, who are like, I gave you the opportunity to be with them. So there was always this air of like, we owed our mom. Like, we owe you for allowing us to be. Like, it was wicked. But at the end of it, I think the way I would conclude that thought is saying, I don't disparage 50-50 to the degree of like it shouldn't happen. I'm not saying that the kid should only be with one parent. I'm not saying that. I think what I'm saying is ultimately there is a result and there's going to be, equal and opposite reaction to any decision made, whether it's we do 50-50 or 75-25 or whatever, right? There's a reality that the person that you give your kid to, right, your ex-spouse or their parent, is not going to run their house the same way. They're not going to think the same way. They're not going to react the same way to the things that you do or react to. So when your kid goes over there, they're walking into a brand new world.
So one of the things that I wanted to wrap up by saying is, in some scenarios, 50-50 can be a good thing. I don't believe that it is the best thing for children for the reasons that I stated in the last episode. And I think the way that you summed it up and said, I would have, even if I had just had my time with my dad every other weekend, that you realize you would have been exposed to your father. But when you said it's the amount of exposure, the duration, and I think that's the thing that I'm hinting on. As a mom, there were times that in the moment, yes, we can have ice cream for breakfast. And I have let my children, like, it's Saturday morning, let's have a bowl of ice cream and eat cartoons. And that's okay occasionally. Like, oh, that's a fun thing. But if I'm the parent that's going to let our children eat ice cream for breakfast every day in, day out, for a week, every other, like, if that's my idea of nutrition, that's going to be harmful to our child. Not to say that if you have 50-50 custody, that one of them is going to be a bad parent, because you can have two great parents that understand nutrition, that both want sports, that both are in church. My thing is, we are still different people. And when you said I had to be a different child for my mother and a different child for my father, that is at the core of what I'm talking about. I think it is hard to, I'm this person, even if it's the smallest tweaks. My mother's a very punctual person. At my dad's house, I can stay up to 5 o'clock in the morning. Not because he was trying to be bad, just, okay, well, it's the weekend, son. You stay up, hang out. Not because she was anything wrong with, we're going to open the church doors every day, 7 o'clock in the morning. And dad is like, no, let's just relax and build Legos together. Two different things, but you're developing two different personalities because these two people are submerging their thoughts and input on you in a very serious, drenching way, like a concentrated way. And mom, hey, I forgot this at dad's house. No, like you're living out of a suitcase. It's a kind of a back and forth of, I just think of like a salesperson.
Yeah.
And we're going to Motel 6 and I'm going to be there for a week. Don't get too settled. Get too settled because on Monday I'm going back over here.
Yeah.
And I'm over here at the Hyatt and I'm here and don't get too settled. Get too settled. It's like you can't really relax and just live and be, and I'm in my space. And like this office, this studio, I designed it with the things that I love. I don't have 2 African drums.
Yeah.
I don't have this aquarium. Like if this is my sanctuary, this is my space, I'm going to make do when I'm at your house. I'm going to have a different one there. And it's not that you can't have 2 favorite places, but I'm saying to develop your sense of self. And then I'm changing over here, I'm a different self. And over here, I'm a different self. I feel like that can be very jarring for a child.
It was, yeah.
And then just like your daughter, who developed that into a slow roll. It started as every other weekend, and it was more time and more time and more time. And when she got to, and it started with the every other weekend and grew more time because she wanted to be at our house. And then it got to the place where it was like almost 50-50.
So when y'all experienced that then, with regards to her?
It wasn't a 50-50, but it was the time split was a lot of times almost a 60-40, and then it was a kind of a 50-50, and then she stayed with him for a while. Instead, she went back and forth between the houses a lot until she literally, and she was 8 or 9 years old, and I asked her.
We live on the same street.
She was a lot younger with that. She wanted to live on the same street so she could see.
So even at that age, she realized how stressful and exhausting it was.
But when she was younger, she wanted everybody to live on the same street so she didn't have to go a day without seeing him or without seeing her biological mom. She wanted to see everyone. She was young. She wasn't even kindergarten.
Right.
But by the time that baby was 8 or 9 years old, I asked her one year what she wanted for her birthday. And it was for you to come live with you guys permanently. Like she knew I was an attorney by then. And she knew that we could go to court and file papers and she can come live with us because she had been asking to come live with us. And one year I asked her what she wanted for her birthday, and she said for you to file my papers and come live with y'all permanently.
Wow. Yeah.
It was just a lot of going back and forward and backward and forward, and it was just a lot for her to go back and forward. I didn't experience that with my children. My children lived with me, and they visited their father, but it was not consistent enough that it was a impact on their life.
Yeah. But even for me, and I want to make this clear, my experience will not necessarily be any other kid's experience.
Agreed.
Just because his daughter and me experienced that feeling doesn't mean everyone's will. And I think most people watching this are like, well, that's not going to be us. Listen, it might not be you, but it could be you, right? Because you might have this, again, idealized version of what you think you're doing, what you and your spouse think is happening, or ex-spouse or ex-partner think is happening. But then when that kid opens their mouth, you're like, I thought we were doing better than that. I didn't realize.
I just think people just really.
It just is what it is.
Think about the parenting time. It's not an argument for which parent should have primary time. I'm just saying there are other ways that that parenting time so that the dads can be involved. Because I do not believe that you can be a father every other weekend.
No.
I don't believe that you picking up your kid on Friday at 6 and bringing them back Sunday on 6. That shouldn't. For real fathers, that's not a starter.
Yeah.
That's a girls' night out, girls' weekend kind of thing. But you don't really get to parent your child just on the weekend. So somewhere in between there's
always a balance.
Is how you share that child and figuring out what works for your family and what works for your child is where that, intersection needs to be met.
Yeah. And I think for me, what I realized was, and you asked me before, how did that all affect me as a father? So remember I told you my parents moved around a lot. Well, I ended up doing that same thing as I became an adult. So since my daughter was born, we have moved 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. She's only 4, right? So she came to me one day after we finally bought our house. Like, that was it. I was like, I'm not moving no more. This is it for a while. And I remember she came up to me and she was like, Dad, is this the last house we're going to have? I was like, yeah, for a while. And she was like, okay, good. I'm tired of moving. She said that at 3 or 4. So I realized I was slipping into that behavior just from off the back of what I was experiencing growing up. And so hearing my daughter say that at such a young age, I was like, I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to stop right there, right? Because now, you just learn those things, right? You just learn. You learn. And I learned, is that to say that my marriage is divorce proof? No one's is. But like, I think ahead of time, I'm kind of already aware as an adult and as my kid grows up, hoping that we never get divorced or have to experience that for whatever reason, that I try to find that balance that I didn't have growing up, right? So there's a lesson, there's a positive and negative everything. To be clear, I did learn a lot of great things from both people, right? It wasn't hell in both houses and I just these horrible people. No. There were negative effects and there were positive effects from what I learned from both houses. That's it. That's all my story is that I would have preferred there to be a stable single household that I lived at where I didn't have to do this rubber banding, but that just wasn't the life I lived. That just is what it is. It's just what happened. I couldn't control what my parents did. I couldn't control their relationship. All I could control was how I reacted to it. You know what I mean? And so as an adult, I can look back and say, yeah, that was a lot. That was a lot. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not going to sit here and act like there weren't positives to both experiences. But I can definitely identify the negatives to it. And I can speak about it. And so I think that's all my portion of this was like, yeah, get the 50-50 done. Just know it ain't going to be perfect. You know what I'm saying? And that's really my thing.
I don't think any of it is perfect, but if you were co-parenting, I think it's an easier transition if both parents were actively parenting 50-50 when they were together. Mm. And so they have kind of developed their parenting styles more similarly situated like your parents were, so that when you visited your dad, it wasn't such a shock to be like, I'm not torn to be a different person at my mom's house and dad's house, because your parents were a lot more. You went to church at both houses. You both said, okay, you can play a sport, or both said a lot of the similar things. So there are scenarios where both parents raise their children with common goals and common child rearing. And in those situations, the 50-50 parenting will actually work. Right. And your child is not becoming a new person over here with ice cream every day. And on the other side, they are eating fresh homegrown vegetables in the backyard only. Right. So just
the more, I guess the thing is,
each situation uniquely.
The more structure and the more stability, the better.
Yeah. And again, it was, I think, just in relating to what my situation was, it didn't change a whole lot. It didn't. Yeah, it was parent A, parent B, but it wasn't a lot of change.
Right.
All the players, all the same players, the aunts, uncles, grandmothers, they all lived in the same town. They all lived within a 20-minute drive of each other. So I didn't experience it so much, and that's probably why my experience was a little bit different. Had one side that was a little rowdier than the other, but it was the same way when they were together. Mom had some of her complaints, and my dad was kind of whatever. Yeah. I'm not really trying to hear that. When they split, my mom had her complaints, and my dad was, I still ain't really trying to hear that.
Yeah. But that's what's so unique. My parents ended up becoming completely different people with different habits, different lifestyles, different mindsets by the time they divorced. That's what really changed. It was like, that was the biggest, right? So I'm having to relearn these people. As a kid, I'm having to renegotiate my relationship with both parents, because these are not the same people as they were living together. And that was, yeah, it was interesting.
What are your final thoughts?
I just had one follow-up question. Do you think because of the divorce, is that what changed them into different people? Like the breakup is what made them become different people, or
It was
or
it
just
was the
product
time
of
of
it?
it was the time apart from each other and them rediscovering who they were as individuals. When you get married, I've been married for 11 years almost. Y'all been married for 19 going on 20, right? 18 going on 19, excuse me.
37.
You 37 years. You guys were different when you guys were separated, or excuse me, when you guys were single people, you were different people. When you came together, you had to reassert your own self, who you were, your habits, right? You had to meld yourself to this person. My parents went through the process of unmelding themselves from each other and redefining who they were outside of each other. That's really what happened. Whether these were the people, these could have been the same people from before I was born. I don't know that. Because when I was born, these were the people I met. They were married. They were together. This was what I know. So by the time they separated, they reestablished themselves as individuals. So the divorce was what they weren't reestablishing themselves as individuals while married. They were married. So they had all the same schedule and habits, and we all went to church, and we all did this together, and we all did that together. When separated, my mom didn't talk about veganism or eating tofu until that nigga left the house. Like, she never thought about that. My dad I never saw that man smoke a day in my life. Never seen him drink a sip of alcohol until he was in his own house. They're different people. Like, they ended up being completely, wildly different people by the time they divorced.
So I can see how that would make your 50-50 even harder. Because you're like, oh.
Yeah, yeah.
Who are you?
Right, exactly.
And who are you?
Yeah.
And now you got two, seem like very extreme different parents.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's the norm for most people. If they're going to have that level of extremeness between them, then I can see how that would be very difficult for a child.
Mm-hmm.
In this scenario where you have a involved dad, and you and I are different, but I think that if we get a divorce, that our time back and forth with our child, I think our parenting styles and what we do for our son is similar enough that it wouldn't be like jarring for him. I'm a lot more affectionate and make a lot more excuses for him to be coddled, and you're a little more firm than I am. But I don't think that he would have I don't think that he would become a different person.
Uh-huh.
I don't think that he would become a different person. But I don't think he would like to do 50-50.
No.
I don't think he would like to do 50-50. I think our son is
Staying with his mom.
He is a diehard mama's boy.
There you go. Yeah.
So I guess in closing, it is it's just an opinion. It's not that we're against 50-50. We clearly have two different somewhat opinions, but it's still based on what's best for the child. It needs to be well thought out how it's going to affect them, and not just coming from an emotional place of my ego's in the way and this is the reason why I want the 50-50 custody or the primary custody. So at the end of the day, the main objective, the main focus is the child. And that's just something that we want to make sure that we keep the eye on the prize and build something that is going to be the best scenario for the child, put them in the best scenario to be successful. Definitely, if it's something that you found interesting or you have further questions, you can always contact us. You can like, love, subscribe. Also, if there's any questions or comments, post them. We try to make sure that we respond back to those things, as well as if you found it useful and you want to give our office a call, feel free to give us a shout, and we will be more than happy to help you in your future endeavors.